Is the NCAA about to put a permanent end to older players in college sports? Welcome to Overtime with Matt Moscona. I am your host, Matt Moscona. If you're with us on YouTube, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. If you're on podcast, thanks, please subscribe as well. The NCAA's Division I Council is set to meet in June. The Division I Cabinet, is set to meet in June. And they might well bring for a vote an age-based eligibility model. So to understand right now, in college athletics, athletes have 5 years to play 4 seasons of competition. As we well know, there's a common redshirt year. So you have 5 to play 4. Something that has been discussed here of late is what's commonly referred to a 5-for-5 model. All athletes would have 5 years to play 5 seasons. So it would eliminate, like in college football, if you play 4 games, you can maintain a redshirt year. But if you play more than 4, you lose that year. That would go away in the 5-for-5 model. This does not appear to be that just yet. I'll explain. The 5-for-5 is everyone can play five seasons. 5 seasons, no restrictions in 5 years. This is effectively limiting older players. This would effectively limit older players from being in college athletics because the rule that is being considered that could come up for a vote in June would create a new eligibility model where athletes you would have 5 years to play your competition immediately upon graduating high school or your 19th birthday. So if you happen to be a 19-year-old still in high school later, I don't know how that could possibly happen, but I'm sure there are exceptions. But basically, you would have 5 years. Your clock would start immediately upon graduating high school or your 19th birthday, whichever comes first. And you'd have 5 years to exercise your eligibility. There would be no waivers. There would be no medical red shirts. There would be no other red shirts. You would have 5 years to play your eligibility as soon as you graduated high school. Now, my feeling on this is I understand the NCAA is looking to solve a problem. The problem they have is athletes trying to stay in college athletics longer to be able to capitalize on NIL and rev share. Now, having older athletes in college sports isn't anything new. We've seen exceptions and high-profile exceptions over the years. Like let me name a few just to give you some context around why this is a pretty big deal. Chris Weinke is probably the most notable. Chris Weinke was 28 years old when he won the Heisman Trophy and led Florida State to the national championship in the year 2000. He's 28 years old, playing against guys who were literally 10 years younger than him in some instances. Matt Mauck was an LSU quarterback who won the national championship with the Tigers in 2003. He was 24 years old, played professional baseball, had been a Saban recruit at Michigan State, played professional baseball. When his baseball career ended, he joined Saban at LSU and ended up winning a national championship. There were others. Joe Lawrence at LSU was a professional baseball player, came back, played football for Nick Saban. Zach Von Rosenberg was a great baseball prospect, signed professionally out of high school. When his baseball career ended, he came back, ended up being the punter on the 2019 national championship team. There are more. If you might remember this story, Tim Pops Frisbee played at South Carolina under Lou Holtz back in 2004 when he was 39 years old. It was a crazy story, but Pops had a 20-year military career. And when his military career was over, he wanted to give college football a try. So he walked onto the South Carolina team and gained eligibility. He had never enrolled in school. His clock had never started. And so he still had eligibility, and the NCAA granted him that waiver. I can keep going. Remember Brandon Weeden? Brandon Weeden from Oklahoma State was a guy who played professional baseball, then came back into college football as a 28-year-old. And he was a first rounder in the 2002 MLB draft by the Yankees. He ended up coming back to college football and leading Oklahoma State to a great season in 2011. Chad Hutchinson is a guy who was drafted out of high school by the Braves, chose to attend Stanford, and then made his way back to professional football. Monty Harrison was drafted in 2014 by the Brewers, spent 9 seasons in pro baseball, then left baseball, went back to to play as a 28-year-old at Arkansas as a walk-on receiver. So there are those examples throughout college football of older players who, for whatever reason, didn't start their football career immediately upon graduating high school and then came back as older college football players. I don't think many people have had a problem with those exceptions. The problem is what's happened here of late, and in particular, it started with COVID. Now, COVID created a lot of outlier situations, right? Where maybe you had a player who got a sixth year. This is a situation that's not altogether uncommon. I'll give you an example of someone who I covered at LSU, and that was Kirsten Pittman. So Kirsten Pittman was a defensive lineman who came to LSU in 2003 as a freshman. He took a redshirt year, ended up having a knee injury. So he was granted a medical redshirt and ultimately ended up playing a sixth season at LSU. So he was there from 2003 season to 2008 season. So he played 6 seasons, but again, had his redshirt year and a medical redshirt year. That's something that's not altogether uncommon. Well, COVID gave everyone a free year. So we started to see seventh year players because you could have those situations. You had the free COVID year that everybody got, plus the situation I just laid out where players could have their red shirt and then apply for a hardship, be it a medical waiver or a hardship waiver or whatever the case may be, as players were trying to stay in college athletics longer, especially when NIL came into effect 1 year after COVID. So you started to see these players, more commonly 6th or 7th year guys in college athletics, not because they were just desperate to play for Old State U, but because they had the opportunity to make money. Listen, there are some programs that thrive on older players, none more so than BYU because of the LDS missions. So you very commonly have players that are older at BYU because they go on their Mormon mission and then come back into college football. So Kalani Sitake, for example, is generally an older roster. The average age this past year was nearly 22 years old, the average age of BYU football players. So that's something that's not altogether uncommon. I think what you have, though, is a situation where I think we can all relate to this in some respect. Like, remember when you were in school and if there was one student who kept acting up and I can remember we were going to watch a movie in class or something like that. And they always loved, man, if you're my age, like when they were rolling the TV, if you're an OG, if you're old school, you understand, like when the TVs were on these roller carts, you could hear the cart rolling down the hall when they were bringing a TV into the room. If you're younger than that, you won't get it. But it would be great, man, when you get to watch a movie. But if there was one kid in class who was acting up, lights come on, TV goes out, now we're back to a lesson. And the one bad egg screwed it up for everybody else. It feels like this is a situation where it's not just one bad egg. It's a growing number of bad eggs who I can't even say that they're bad people. They're just trying to exploit a system where they can make as much money as possible. And it might end up screwing it up for everyone. And for the exceptions, like we just talked about, guys like Weinke and Weeden and Mauck, who wouldn't have the opportunity to do what they did, which is leave, go play pro baseball or something else, and then come back into college athletics. Now, I think uniformity is what college athletics needs right now. Uniform, enforceable rules. The biggest issue that college athletics continues to have, and we've talked about this in several previous episodes, is not necessarily a lack of rules. It's a lack of enforcement of rules. And it's not actually the NCAA's fault. They're trying to enforce their rules, but athletes then just go to court to sue for eligibility. I've said it many times. You want to put an end to that? The athletic directors and university presidents could do it instantly. If they would say to these athletes, no, we are voluntary members of the NCAA. We choose to be members of the NCAA, and in so doing, we choose and agree to abide by their rules. So we're going to abide by their rules. But they won't do that because they want these players to have eligibility, and these players want to make money. I think a good solution would be a 5 for 5 model. What is being discussed is not a 5 for 5 model. It would still just be 4 years of eligibility, but you would only have 5 years. There would be no exceptions except for pregnancy, religious missions, or military service. Those 3 exceptions would still stand, But what would stop is the player who leaves to go play pro baseball and comes back, or a Trinidad Chambliss situation where you're trying to get a fraudulent medical red shirt to be able to get another year so you can make $5 million. I know Ole Miss fans aren't going to like to hear that, but it's what it is. Like the NCAA declined his medical red shirt, and he went to court to try to regain that eligibility. So I love the idea of the NCAA trying to put up guardrails. It's what everyone asks for. My real question isn't should they put up these guardrails. It's if they do approve this model, this 5-year clock from the time you finish high school or when you turn 19 years old, if they do approve that model, will NCAA member institutions accept and abide by that rule? Or will you still see athletes go to court to sue? I think what you're going to continue to see, as long as there's money at stake, at scale, like we're talking about, you're going to continue to see athletes, regardless of whatever rules the NCAA passes and tries to enforce, you're going to see student athletes going to court to try to retain eligibility if there are hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars at stake. And the only way that ever changes is if the university presidents and athletic directors tell these athletes, we're not doing this anymore. We are going to abide by the NCAA's rules. And unless and until that happens, I think regardless of what the NCAA passes, you're going to continue seeing cases like this go to court for players to gain eligibility so they can make money and the schools can try to win with the best athletes. So we'll keep an eye on this to see if it does in fact pass in June. But that would be a groundbreaking step in eligibility for NCAA sports. It's just a matter of if it does pass, will it actually be able to be enforced? Of course, we'll keep you posted. Hey, let me know what you think about that. Please drop your comments either on podcast or on YouTube. If you are on YouTube, please smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. If you're on podcast, please subscribe in your favorite podcast app, rate us, leave a review. And thanks for stopping by here on Overtime with Matt Moscona.